Today on a special rambling about cars, just another 800 horsepower Mercedes. Oh, thank goodness we have a returning guest who regale us all with stories of Radwood, the 80s, 90s car scene that we absolutely adore. So let's just roll, man. This is a good one. It's podcast time. I am Christopher Smith, Mr. Chris Bruce across the way. Who's with us today once again for the third time? Is it the third time?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Brad Hansen. I thought you were going to say his name. Sorry.
Oh, right.
Here.
Bruce, you do all the intros, man.
Well, you set it up. I figured you'd push it
knock it down.
No, we have Brad Hansen with us today.
Great to be back. Third time
I think you were our first, not from the Motor One team, in the three-timer club.
Nice.
Two times, but I think you're the first to be on 3 times as a guest. So we love having you. Happy you're back. So yeah, fantastic.
Happy to be here. Is there a special jacket that you get or something like that?
Not yet. No,
that's the 5-timers club, and it's just going to be some flannel. Sorry, man.
Great. I'll take it.
Before we kick off into everything, there's a little bit of housekeeping I need to do real quick. For any of our frequent listeners, you will know last week we upset the YouTube gods, and about 22-ish minutes into the show, we went blank. Now, we were still streaming on Facebook and Twitter, and I know some of you found those streams.
However, appreciate that.
And we fully appreciate that. It was fantastic of you guys to work around in chat and find it. I appreciate that. But the full episode is now on YouTube.
Yep.
It's fine. You can watch it. So if you missed last week's show and you were watching and it went blank and you didn't go on Facebook or Twitter or stuff like that, watch this show with us tonight. But then, Friday night, you're looking for something to watch. There's nothing on TV. You can pull up last week's rambling about cars, and it's all there.
It is all there. Everything is plugged back in. And I mean, lesson learned, be a little cautious when you are sharing. And that's what we were doing. We were sharing, but we were talking over, we were narrating. At the time, that was number 5 trending on YouTube. So yeah. We caught some attention there, and that's fine. Great episode. Of course, we were sharing the Ken Block Gymkhana, his final Gymkhana Electricana 2. But yeah, everything is up there. Everything is cool with YouTube, and we are stoked to be here.
Yeah. And I will say so on tonight's show, we're going to start out with just a little bit of actual pure car news. As Smith mentioned, there's a new Mercedes-Benz AMG SL that we want to talk about. And then we're going to get a little bit more rambly. We're going to talk to Brad about some Radwood stuff. We got a cheap car challenge, and I'll tell you folks now, in case you find a car that fits into it. Here are the rules. You have $10,000 to spend, but the vehicle must be right-hand drive, and it must be roughly Radwood appropriate. So, Brad, tell the people, what would you say roughly Radwood appropriate means?
Well, there is no roughly. It's actually pretty cut and dry. Radwood is for cars from 80s and 90s only. So anything made from 1980 to 1999, you're good. It can be a 1999. So anything that's 2000 and later, that's Litwood, as they say. That's too new. Anything before that's like groove wood or dadwood.
Actually, that's a good point. Let me Group FBC. Hey, right-hand drive. Is this so normal for some of us? Okay, well, let's put a stipulation in there. If you are in a place like, say, Australia, where right-hand drive is the norm, you have to find a left-hand driver.
And also that $10,000, that's it. It's not like you can, unless you could figure out some way to buy a car in Japan and get it here for $10,000 all in, which I don't think is really possible. You got 10 grand to spend. So have fun.
10 grand to spend. And if you're catching us live, we're on Motor One YouTube, Motor One.com Facebook, Motor One.com Twitter. Jump into the comments. Do a quick search. Find your $10,000 right-hand drive Radwood machine. Dump it into the comments. We see all your comments. We can interact with you. It all comes back here to Command Central with us. And if you're listening on audio, we still love everybody on audio. We go up every Friday on Spotify, Apple, Google, Podchaser. I looked up a new one this week, Bruce. We're on Podchaser. Yeah, like a dozen different audio platforms. Email us, podcast@motor1.com. Say, hey, I found this cheap car challenge. I wanted to share it with you guys. Harf of Jar, a regular Rambler. We just got your email today, and I want to apologize. It somehow got past us there towards the end of November.
Thing. We got your reply because we saw the images now, but
we got that.
The original.
We're going to talk about that next week because that is a cool find that you have. So yeah, folks, podcast@motor1.com. We love to interact and share these adventures with you. And speaking of adventures, that segue doesn't work at all because
not
is there anything adventurous about an 816 horsepower, rather small Mercedes convertible?
Dude, the SL is a pretty big convertible by all.
But it's when you think about it. I mean, when you take it in context, I mean, yeah, it's not like, I mean, it's not a Miata, right? It's not a Miata.
No, it's not.
But it's got a fairly small interior. It's just kind of a smallish 2-door convertible roadster, whatever you want to call it. With 816 horsepower.
Yes. This is the new Mercedes-AMG SL63 E Performance. Deep breath. And yes, it is the most powerful SL ever offered to buyers. It, like you said, 816 horsepower. The torque figure is what I think is just stupidly hilarious. 1,047 pound-feet of torque.
Awesome. So I mean, like you can tow like an aircraft carrier.
Basically.
I mean, how would you feel if you're in Detroit right now with Ram or General Motors or Ford, and you're rubbing your hands together? We've got our class leading, heavy duty diesel pickup truck that has 1,000 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, my little convertible Mercedes has more.
I still don't like you calling this car little, but that's beside the point. Here are the specs: twin turbocharged 4-liter V8. Plus an electric drive unit. So the V8 totally by itself, let me double check this. I believe it's 612 horsepower. And then the electric motor is offering an additional 204 horsepower. The battery, though, it is only 6.1 kilowatt hours, which for anyone out there who is familiar with these things, that's a pretty tiny battery. And that means you can drive this thing purely electrically, but the range is 8 miles.
Yeah, it's like the other E Performance models.
Yeah,
it's a plug-in hybrid.
Corvette E-Ray. Yeah, like the Corvette E-Ray. It can only go like a few miles on pure electric. The electricity is for performance, not efficiency. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I mean, of course, we know there are many places around the world that are moving towards mandates where in some of the congested cities, you may have to pay a surcharge to drive just through the city if you have a combustion engine. Something like this, hey, if you got 8 miles of range, you might be able to kind of slip through the city. Yeah. I mean, there's that aspect that's involved here too. But yeah, this is a performance application, not an efficiency application. No. And I mean, it does perform. Mercedes says 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, top speed, 197 miles an hour. I will say, top speed is what did I write down here? The regular, air quotes, the regular SL with only 577 horsepower, that goes 196. So you get an extra mile per hour. 0 to 60. I mean, it's a little quicker. I think the standard SL is like 3.5 seconds. This is 2.9. Lots of performance, of course, all-wheel drive. They change up the brakes a little bit. It's got bigger brakes, 16.5-inch rotors up front, 6-piston calipers, 15-inch rotors in the back. They tweak the SL's active aero. I think there's a little flap that kind of folds down at the front that helps suck it down once you get up to speed. Interior is SL, gorgeous.
Yeah, it's an
exterior SL, gorgeous. I mean, this
ton of power.
I mean, I think this is one of the best looking. I won't say it. This is one of the best looking convertibles. I won't say little. This is one of the best looking convertibles out there right now. I love the lines. I love the shape. Yeah. 816 horsepower. I know. I mean, Bruce, we've talked about it before. In fact, I think I remember talking about the SL43 saying,
Right.
you know, is this really the one to have? Because that's what, 400 and some horsepower.
Correct.
It's not going to be
Or
slow,
something.
right?
No, God, no. Yeah. We do not have pricing yet. I think it is very safe to say that this is six figures. You know.
It's not just six figures. I mean, the regular SL is 188 grand.
Right.
Ooh.
Well, that's why I say it's very
this is
safe to say this is six figures.
this is probably like again, we don't have anything official. We don't know pricing, just speculating here.
But
if the regular SL is 188 grand, it's not a stretch to say this is 200. Yeah. And it could even be a step beyond that. And yeah. 816 horsepower. When Mercedes drops something like this, you gotta pay a little attention, I guess.
Yeah, it's the most powerful SL ever, and that's a long-lived name going back to the SLR race cars and the 300 SL gull wings, and then the pagoda bodies, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's a long-lived name to finally have. This is the most powerful of them. But Brad, I want your take. Before we start talking about older cars, I want your take on this brand new car.
I mean, very, very cool for somebody, but honestly, this is not my. There's a reason I like older cars. I don't think that you need I don't think you need 800 horsepower. That's just crazy. I feel like it actually. I will admit that it does look much nicer than previous SLs have looked. I feel like the generation before this looked a little, I don't know, dumpy, and this looks kind of nice and sharp edged and minimalist. I like that. But cars like this that are worth 4 times the average American income, and at 800 horsepower and 1,000 pound-feet of torque, and they probably weigh like 4,500 pounds, and it's just not my bag. But hey, it's really cool for someone out there, and it is neat that it is AMG does mean like brute force power, and the numbers they're getting is just astronomical. I mean, my hat's off to the engineers, I guess is the best thing I can say.
And Brad, you don't have to worry. It's not like Smith and I can afford this thing either. It's
I am a little sad because I just cleared room in the shop. I'm going to put this out in the garage. No, I want to share a comment here. Pilf JD, am I saying your name right there? Are you a first time commenter? Is this the first time we've seen?
I think we have a few first-time commenters. I haven't.
Yeah, we got a lot of first-timers here in the chat. We love seeing everybody. The comment: why even electrify against the regular SL to charge more? And there's no quotes on charge, but I think I'm getting the meaning there. I mean, that's a valid question. As I was looking at this, and when you look at the stats, the top speed one. Who's going that fast, even on a track. There are very few tracks I can think of where you'll be able to stretch it all the way out to 197 miles an hour. You're not doing that on the street, right?
It is German though, so I do give German cars a pass because they do have the Autobahn. And yes, even on the Autobahn, I had never been there, but I understand it. It's difficult to get 200 miles per hour on Autobahn.
Right.
But the idea is that it's kind of like when you're towing, right? Like you don't want to be towing at your. If your truck can tow 10,000 pounds, right, and you're continually, it's going to tow 8,000 pounds easier. So like if you want to go 170 miles an hour, this will be able to go 170 miles per hour all day, no problem. Whereas if you had a car that top speed was 170, it'd be very hard to get there. But
yep, you're absolutely right there. I mean, when you look at the numbers, just the top speed, the 0 to 60, they aren't drastically different. But you will really, really feel that from 100 to 150. It's just going to be a completely different sensation in that versus the regular SL63. But yeah, having driven higher horsepower cars and owning higher horsepower cars, I still stand by the mantra that 5 to maybe 550 is sort of that sweet spot. That's the point where, okay, if you have a manual transmission, especially first gear, forget about it. You're not using it unless you're just going slow and you don't feel like running the clutch a little bit more in second. But beyond that, on the street, I mean, you should obey all traffic laws, but it's still more or less a manageable amount of power. If you start to tip into the throttle after that, the traction control isn't going to immediately kick in and knock 200 horse off. You get beyond that, and that's really what you're running into on the street. You're just never using that amount of power. You go to the track, you go to the drag strip. Yeah, you can use it, but how often are people doing that? And if you are doing it very often, you're probably just building a car to go do it specifically for. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on the horsepower war. But with electric power, I mean the horsepower war isn't going to go anywhere because it's so easy to make big power with electric motors.
One nice little thing about electric motors with cars like this that I do appreciate, especially performance cars or this like the Corvette E-Ray, is that if you live in a very affluent neighborhood and you don't want to piss off your neighbors and you have a loud car, you can start it in, I'm assuming this car will have something like the Corvette E-Ray does or other cars like this, where you can start it in electric mode. And then, you know, and then at some point the actual engine will fire up. So when you're outside of the neighborhood, so that's kind of a nice little thing too that might matter to some people more than others.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And but I would expect, this being Mercedes, it's going to be ridiculously quiet, even in like full on engine on mode, right?
Okay.
The SL is not really known as a really aggressive. It's it's that.
But like the Vets and absolutely turn it into quiet mode.
So, guys, we didn't discuss this before the show. Do we want to talk Radwood next, or do we want to talk car toys next?
Oh, we're going to talk Radwood, man. We're going to talk Radwood for the next 20 years.
Okay. Okie doke.
Just because, Brad, I always love it when you're on the show, and I've been yearning to get to a proper Radwood event for years. And I had a taste of that a couple years ago in South Dakota when there was just like a little mini event set up that was just 80s, 90s culture. And I absolutely loved it. I went in not a costume, but I had like my 80s jean jacket. I had my Reeboks. I didn't show up in full on Wham attire like we're seeing here. Straight from, I mean, what is that?
It's the Wake Me Up Before You Go-Go.
Yeah, is that 85?
Somewhere around there. I can't remember. 84, 85. Yeah.
84, 85. Well, tell us a little bit about this, because this was an event that you were at recently. You had a great time there.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not just about a car show. It's just about the whole era. So tell us about this event. Where was this at, and what all took place?
Well, yeah. So basically, in late November, early December, there's lots of Radwoods every year. I would say they're around. Yeah, that's where we're trying to be. They're around the country. But the one that my wife and I always go to is the one that's in SoCal, which is in LA area, and that's usually like near the end of the year. And every year we try to think of something just different that we can dress up as. Jessica Misa was the guy running the costume contest part. We were like second, basically. We lost to someone who was like dressed as soccer moms from the 80s or something like that. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. People get into it. Like a lot of people like dressing up. They play 80s and 90s music, and it's only 80s, 90s cars. And I love it because I get to see some really random cars, like my favorite cars there. There's cars that you just never see anywhere else that are just, if you love 80s and 90s cars, this is like the place to go, because that's where they're brought out and given a place to shine. These are just my personal favorites. This photo album right here that you're seeing, some really cool. I think that 969 was the winner of the whole show.
Yeah, because I mean, was Porsche there? I mean, has a manufacturer? Because I mean, we're seeing some properly. I mean, I think that one 911 was. Didn't we cover that, Bruce, a while ago as an art car, and the 969 too? I think.
Yeah, I mean, Porsche was there. I mean, nowadays it's grown to a point where there are some, sponsors that will be there. I think Mobile One sponsors the event now, and Haggerty helps run it. Actually, I think these are just random photos of just some cool stuff that was there. But it's a great time, and there's rad accessories, and it's just if you love 80s and 90s stuff, it's great. And the other thing that I noticed this year that was surprising was that, if you're born in the 80s like I am, this is all nostalgic. But what's really cool to see is how many people who were born after the Radwood era that are enjoying the show now. For whatever reason, it's just they like the style or the music or whatever. So it's not just nostalgia; it's just an appreciation of that time frame.
I want to point out here real quick, and this image is the perfect way to illustrate it. Is so you have these two cars in front here that are both, you know, well into the 6-figure cars. You have some very cool BMWs in the back. And then if you look there, right in the back, you've got a Fiero. So everyone is welcome. You know, actually, I guess the one is an Alfa Milano, not a BMW. But anyway, you know, you've got a $100,000 Porsche worth today, and then a very nice Fiero just hanging out in the background. It gets the love too.
Yep.
How many cars would you say were at this event this year?
Oh, there's usually like 150, 200, something like that. You know, people bring out their old, you know, and you just never know what you're going to see. And that's part of why I like it, beyond just, you know, seeing friends and the community. But yeah, it's a great show. Radwood.com. You can sort of see a schedule of, you know, the different shows they have. I feel like they are expanding and trying to go into different markets that they might not have been before. But yeah, it's great. People dress up and have a good time, and it's cool. Very rad show.
Has somebody a little bit older? I was I was born in the mid 70s, so I remember the 80s very, very clearly. And like you were saying, there are a lot of younger people that are just kind of getting into the era. I'm a little embarrassed sometimes when I see them dress up in what they think we wore. And it's just like, okay, you know what? Yes, there were a lot of people with big hair, but your hair is like way, way, way big. And I mean, I guess it's maybe a caricature of the event, of the era, but I think it's neat to see. And I distinctly remember like 91, 92, when grunge is really coming in, and everybody was just like, oh, the 80s were terrible. We want nothing to do with them. And then a little more time has gone by, and it's like, okay, maybe they weren't that terrible. I mean, it was, I'm going to try not to get too preachy here.
Okay.
But it was, in my opinion, arguably the biggest defining era for the automobile, and people love to trash on the cars of the 80s. This is when computer control and electronics came in, and that changed everything. It changed absolutely everything up until probably, I'm trying to remember some of the earlier. I mean, I think Mercedes was starting to dip into that in the mid 70s or so, but up to that point, the formula for automobiles remained relatively the same as it had from the very beginning. Right. And then here comes technology. Here comes more advanced control systems, computer control, and that just changed the whole process. And it led to an 816 horsepower Mercedes that is quiet, that is comfortable. I'm assuming it's comfortable. I haven't driven one yet, Mercedes, so send one my way so I can confirm this. Or even like the Hellcats that can be daily driven with 700-800 horse. That all happened because of what happened in the 1980s, and I'm super excited to see it getting some love and respect.
Well, I think that people are, I really got into cars, like new cars, in like the early 90s. And that was such an exciting time to be a car fan because, from just knowing history, cars were so cool. And then the gas crisis hit. And then just overnight, the power the cars had was like halved. And all automakers could do was just keep up, and the double whammy, especially in America, of all the different safety concerns that were hitting. So the industry went from basically they could do whatever they want to being super regulated, and they had to worry about gas mileage, compression ratios went down, and all these safety things, and all they could do was just keep up with it. Around the time of the early 80s is when they started to kind of come out of that, where every year the cars got better and better and more powerful. And then by the 90s, they had really gotten stuff figured out. And even like economy cars were getting like reasonable power. and could be really fun. And so to me, my favorite era of cars is always going to be like the 90s specifically. But overall, Radwood is just, to me, just a walk down some of my personal favorite cars that were like ever made.
Oh yeah, it's I love both decades. As evidenced, I have two 95 Fords sitting in my shop. One runs, one does not. So one of these days I'll be able to get both of those to Radwood. Brad, let me ask you a question. We were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier. We're talking 1980 to 1999, pretty much full stop. But is there any grace period for, say, a PT Cruiser that had its beginnings in the late 90s, but if you have like an 02, I mean, is there wiggle room there, or is it?
Yes, there is wiggle room. It's called the continuation clause. You can read all about it on the Radwood official Facebook group. It's a gray area basically, and it's almost case by case. And different people will sort of judge it differently, but the way that I personally look at it is that if you had a car that was I'm trying to think, like the Honda S2000, right? Did that come out in like the year 2000 and onward? That's not a rad car. But let's say you had something like, let's say like a Ford Crown Victoria.
Oh, there you go.
Like a Ford Crown Victoria, right? Which didn't change much from, let's say, 1999 to the year 2000, 2001. Or whenever, once they get to a point where there's like a noticeable facelift, like, I don't know, maybe like 2002, they did a noticeable facelift, or I can't remember when it was, but when there's a point where they start looking noticeably different, then that's a problem. To use like the PT Cruiser, which I want to say came out, let's say like 98, 97, right? There was a point, there was a facelift in the early 2000s, and I would say that is now too old.
After that, okay.
Yeah, so it's a gray area. And same thing goes the other way. If you have a car that was made in 1979, but it's the exact same looking as a 1980 model, it's fine, no one's going to chase you away necessarily, but if you want to really be in the spirit of it, there's what's called peak rad, which is something would be like a C4 Corvette or Fiero, where it's like, it is like definitive of the era. Like those are the ones that are like the most fun to bring, that the crowd will probably most appreciate. The Cadillac Cimarron, that was one of my favorite cars I saw there. Something where it's like it only existed in the rad area. Those are like the ones that really are like the most fun to see.
So now you were there with your C4 Corvette?
Yeah.
And well, tell us again. I know you've been on the show before, but tell us again about your Corvette.
Oh yeah, it's a 1996 C4 Corvette, which is the last year of the C4. It's a great car, 6-speed, 1 year only, LT4 engine, which is like a hot rod LT1. It's my daily driver. It's got like I just turned 40,000 miles, and it's been a really great car for me.
Nice.
I really enjoy driving it. It's great for daily. It's great for canyon carving, which I do a lot. And there's a bunch of videos on it on my YouTube channel, which is called Retro Cars Forever, if you want to find out more about it. Yeah.
Now, I'm actually going to promote that for you. You did a fantastic comparison between your C4 and you had a buddy who had a ZR1, and you did, you found an abandoned road, to be fair, and you did kind of some instrumented testing. It wasn't an abandoned road. Like you said, it was, I believe you said it dead ended at one end. So no one was coming down this road.
Yeah. No, we found this. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys sharing that. That was a really fun video to make.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic to watch too.
And we have links. If you're at Motor One YouTube watching right now, we actually have links in the description below that take you over to Brad's Instagram and YouTube page to check out all of the goodness there. Bruce, I've been kind of monopolizing the conversation here for a little bit, but I want to ask a question, Brad.
Oh, so you're not going to let me ask a question?
Yeah, I'm just going to continue monopolizing for a little bit. I don't know why you were thinking otherwise there.
Just keep going. Okay.
I mean, there are several Radwood events around the country. Is there one central event that's thought of as the biggest, or if you can only attend one, this is the one to go to?
Not really. I do know that Radwood started 7 or 8 years ago in California. And California, but in California is just naturally where you're going to find probably the most of these kinds of cars, just because we don't have rust. People are relatively affluent here, so they, you're going to find a lot of survivors here, which you might not find in other states. But From what I've seen, there's many big events, like great turnout all over the place. So I don't think there's any that are like small events, unless it's like sometimes they will do special things where like they'll have like their own little corner at like a track or like a concourse event or something like that. But in general, if it's a full-on Radwood show, there's going to be lots of cars there and lots of cool people.
And Bruce, for the love of God, please stop putting up the picture of the gold Chrysler Laser. Man, I want that thing. Yeah. I want that car so bad. I like the open, the earlier ones, the Lasers or the Daytonas that still had the open headlights before they went to pop. I know pop-ups are cool, but those cars, those Daytonas and the Lasers, just with the open headlights. Oh, that's
love that there's a Starry on
that's rad goodness right there.
I'm talking about
that particular Laser won best domestic at the show.
Nice
in the awards, yeah, and well deserved. It like 30,000 miles. It had like stupid low miles. It was like the cleanest Laser I've ever seen. I mean, you know, didn't even look that great when they were new. I swear.
Right.
It was fantastic. So yeah, you can see he's holding his award. He's and yeah, there's fun awards. Honestly, don't do it for the awards, but there are people do get recognition, and I do think that people who give out the awards, they're pretty fair with the kinds of cool. They're very deserving, I will say. Yeah.
Well, and the Laser, I mean, you see Daytonas, you see Dodge Daytonas. You don't see many of the Chrysler Lasers.
Right.
And I mean, that just makes it even better. Was that an automatic or a 5-speed?
I think it was a 5-speed, is my memory. It had a little turbo, I want to say.
2.2 turbo.
Yeah, that amazing.
Why are we ignoring the Starry on in the background?
Because the Laser's in front. The Starring is good too. Oh, it's all good.
It's got louvers, dude. It's that's the car I'm looking at. Sorry.
Yeah, that's good stuff too.
You could put louvers. I've seen Lasers and Daytonas with louvers.
I have too.
And yeah, and the it is weird because I remember growing up and thinking they were like really cool, but I didn't know why they were there. Now I realize they were there to keep out the sun from like hatchbacks, so that you and it cook. So instead of tint, you'd put those louver things there, and when you looked back, it would still be relatively bright. And I think they're a great rad era specific accessory that are like gone now that you never see. Someone should bring that back. I'd be more interested if the Mercedes brought something like that back. Bring a hatchback with the louvers. That'd be great.
If I didn't have a convertible, I would have louvers on my Mustang. I would absolutely. I'm not lying. In fact, I'm pretty sure I can go to one of several Mustang parts companies and buy louvers for my car. I know I can absolutely get like louvers for the little side windows. And I'm pretty certain I can get louvers for the rear. And yeah, I mean, they were a big thing through the 70s and into the 80s, and they kind of went away. And I don't really know why they went away. That would be an interesting thing to try to look up to see if there was some sort of legislation, maybe worries of blocking rearward vision, which they didn't.
No, it's the other way around. Hatchbacks went away, and so there wasn't a use for them anymore. Once hatchbacks went away, which was a after effect of the car company's obsession with structural rigidity, basically, is my understanding. Like, a lot of cars went away from hatchbacks into fixed, more fixed trunk designs because of it was, it makes the structure stiffer, and people cared more about that than the extra luggage space. And then your glass window isn't as huge. Now you don't need that. That to me is beyond it just kind of falling out of fashion in general.
Yeah, but now we don't have hatchbacks. We have liftbacks that cost 5 times as much because it's not a hatchback.
Right.
It's a liftback. So how many Radwood events have you been to?
Geez. My wife and I have gone to every single one that's been in LA. I want to say it's like 6, 7, something like that. Every single one that has been Radwood SoCal in LA, we have been to from the start. So a lot, and look forward to it every year. It's still my favorite car show. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about that because I reached out to you shortly after seeing you post all of the stuff on Instagram that we're looking at now to have you on the show, and now we're finally doing it. But my original thought was I thought your wife would join us and tell us about her experience of going to these events as well. You guys would be together, and you messaged me back saying she doesn't really like cars.
That's
So
not true.
I guess
That's
my
not true at
question
all.
is, how do you convince her to dress up with you to go to these events?
That is not true. She does like cars, but I don't know if she could ramble on about cars for
Okay, I
a long
misunderstood.
time. You know what I mean? But she enjoys looking at the cars and taking photos, and we enjoy dressing up
Okay.
and doing something fun. So it's and that's the thing too. A lot of couples, like here's another couple.
Yeah.
They enjoy dressing up and getting into the swing of things, and yeah, it's fun. A lot of people go and bring their partners and they have a good time.
All right. That
Oh,
was
and
my
it looks like you're just having
misunderstanding
a. It looks like you're just having a blast.
Yes.
If it doesn't come through, I'm just super jealous. Super jealous. I need to get to a Radwood event.
Yes, you do.
There's I believe there's one in Detroit. I can't remember when it
There's
takes
gotta be
place. But yeah, I've got to get down there. Brian Gurney in the comments. I grew up in a 1985 Saab 900 Turbo. One of my favorite parts was the giant window louvers we had on it.
Yeah.
I mean, a Saab 900 with the louvers.
You've never seen that?
Oh, no, I've seen it. I'm not sure it gets much better. Maybe like a 280 or a 300 ZX with louvers.
Yeah.
And Group FBC, a partner who agrees to dress up as Wham, is an absolute keeper.
There you go.
Now, to be fair, it was actually her idea.
Oh, that's even better. I love it.
She's always been a huge Wham fan. We lose Whamageddon every year immediately because we just like listening to them. But there was a great Netflix documentary that came out about Wham, and I didn't really know much about Wham, and I saw that and had a whole new respect for them. And once we saw that, I'm like, let's go ahead and do this outfit. It was her idea to do the outfit. She's a huge 80s music fan. I think it also makes it fun if you like that music from the era and really celebrate it. It's like a huge nostalgia trip. It's great.
So before we move on to car toys, and actually this fits because we're looking at your Instagram and we're going to be talking something toy-ish. You recently were at Universal Studios, I assume the one in California, but you got to ride the Mario Kart ride, and that's definitely car related. So just give us a quick take on the Mario Kart ride.
It is not, you're in these little cars. I can see sort of behind us in that photo. You're wearing these like virtual reality goggles, and you are kind of like an old Disney ride. You're on you're on a track inside of the car, and you're steering, but you're not really. It's not like you're telling the car where to go. You're sort of like steering when it prompts you to, like an old driver's ed test, and you're trying to get points essentially. So you're trying to get points by steering at the right time. You have little buttons on your steering wheel, and that shoots shells at enemies. And you're trying to hit the enemies that you see that pop up in front of you in virtual reality. And the more enemies you hit, and the more steering inputs you do correctly, the higher the score. And it was really fun. We went a couple times.
Cool.
It's not. Now, what I would love to see, and maybe they're working on this in Japan, is an actual, like, you're in an actual go-kart. That's what I would love to see at some point. Like, you're in a real go-kart with virtual reality things, and you drive over the question marks, and you get things, and you can, and like, I would love to see, like, and then, like, let's say you get a red shell and you shoot it correctly at somebody in virtual reality, then their motor dies for a bit. Like, I want to see a real race, like, but this is still, like, really fun. It just isn't like a real Mario Kart, experience as you might imagine.
Cool. Okay. I just wanted a quick take on that because that's a fairly recent ride. It's been less than a year, certainly.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, since we're talking Mario Kart here, and we're about to talk about some retro toys, Brad, you're a child of the 80s, and Bruce, you're sort of a child of the 80s, and I'm a child of the 80s.
I was born in 1985. I am
Yeah, okay, well, what's your earliest 80s memory?
Oh,
I don't know.
Because
I remember disco.
Oh, well, disco would have been gone by the time we were around in the mid, they would have been on its dying days.
Anyways, let me steer it back here.
Go for it.
Video games.
Yes.
80s video games.
Oh.
What are your picks, Brad?
Oh, just my favorite?
80s car games, I guess.
Oh, 80s car games. Well, yeah. I have good memories of playing, I think it was at pole position at our local Pizza Hut, where it was like a little, it was like you had the steering wheel and you were in this like little Indy car, and it was very like, you know, chunky graphics and chunky sound effects. But I remember that. But I remember.
Yep, that started it all, man. The cabinet console, and that was a depiction of Fuji Speedway. You were racing.
Oh, is it?
Actual, okay, I mean, it's as best as they could get an 8-bit, but
yeah, no, it was. I mean, car video game Outrun is the first one I think of. Like,
Outrun. Yes.
I was definitely I definitely played Outrun in the 80s. This was a little bit later. I think this is 91, but Ivan Iron Man Stewart Super Off-Road.
Yes.
God, that's a good game.
That was the one where it was, it wasn't like point of view. It was sort of like the camera didn't move, right? And you kind of had a little truck and it would jump around, right? In the circle or something.
The steering wheel had no stop on it.
So you can just whip.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spin it one way like you're opening up a door on a submarine, man. And then flip it back the other way.
Yeah.
Good times.
Good times. The nitros.
The nitros. It's just slinging the wheel and just tapping the nitro button.
Yeah. That's a good
Absolutely. Do we want to talk about some retro toys?
I'd love to.
Since we're going back in time here a little bit. And it's a little personal to my heart too, because I finally got my hopefully series launched yesterday with toys that we forgot, the coolest car toys that we forgot. And it starts with the Matchbox Super Spin Car Wash, which is in my collection. That's what kind of prompted the whole thing. Bruce, you're going to pull it up for me?
Yeah,
see, I was ready to ask you to vamp so I could pull up the pictures, but no, you got it.
Ready.
This was in storage at my parents' house, which is now my house, since I was a kid. And as I'm going through boxes trying to get stuff cleared out, here it is. And it was like, well, what should I do with this thing? I mean, it's just a toy, right? And then I pulled it out. It's like, well, I kind of remember this, and this is pretty cool. And then I looked inside, and I was like, oh, I remember the belt broke, and I can't remember how it broke, but I tried to fix it with Scotch tape when I was like 10. And the Scotch tape is still on the belt. So it's like, okay, so I'm kind of nosing around, and then I decide, oh, I wonder if I could write something about this. So I'm like taking photos and I'm taking it apart to see if I can fix it and what all I can do. And that led to the coolest car toys that we forgot. And yeah, it starts with the Super Spin Car Wash. If you are interested, as best I could find, these started in 1981. Mine has a date stamp in 1981 on it. They changed colors through the years, but it went up through, I think, the late 80s, early 90s. And then they created another Super Spin Car Wash in the 2000s that was completely different. But mine is OG. And it is still non-functional because I tried to fix that belt. Actually, if you look here in the photo towards the top, you can see the belt just kind of hanging there. It just disintegrated when I tried to take it apart. I mean, it's 40-year-old rubber belt that was never intended to last that long. So maybe I'll go try to find some replacement. Maybe I'll try to fix it. I don't know. But in the meantime, I cleaned it up as best I could. The spin portion still works. I can still put a little Lamborghini Countach in there. It's all manual. I pull the handle, the thing spins around, and it's just sitting over here on my display case on top with all of the other toys that I will hopefully write about in the near future. But I wanted, since we're talking Radwood, I wasn't intending to do this, but
no, Radwood, I love it.
It's hitting. Radwood is hitting such just a nostalgia point with so many people. And we were talking about before the show, Brad, that there's not really a lot of people revisiting some of these older toys. And I've even been nosing around on eBay some to see. I'm not going to, for the record, I'm not selling this. In the article, the series that I'm going to have going forward, the plan is to, okay, here's my personal experience with this. Here's a little bit about it. Here's the condition of mine right now. Then what am I going to do with it from here? I'm not selling this one. But I'm not sure if the nostalgia is hitting strong enough yet for people to start paying big crazy money for stuff, except like Transformers or some of the really like the big A-list stuff from the 80s, you know?
Well, I think they are. I think go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Brad. I'll chime in a second. Go for it.
Well, one thing this brought up in me, first of all, it's a great idea for a series, and I hope you get to do more. But one thing that this has brought up to me, we can go really deep here, but something that I have been curious about is a bigger question: is nostalgia healthy? Is it weird as middle-aged men to be, even interested in things from our youth, in cars from our childhood, in toys or video games from our childhood, right? And interestingly enough, I was reading a psychology book, and again, this is going a little deeper maybe than you want to go on a car show, but actually, nostalgia can be healthy, because the idea is, I can't remember which book I was reading, but the idea is that when you are younger, you are free of any cares about what anyone thinks about you, right? You're a kid, you play with whatever, you don't care, right? But as time goes on, your personality morphs to better suit your parents' expectation of you, society's expectation of you, and you end up with what I can't remember what the psychologist calls, but what's essentially like a mask of not your real self. You kind of create this persona that isn't your real self, right? And that if you want to be true to your real self, you have to rediscover your true self. Nostalgia can, in a weird way, help you do that, because you're going back to reconnecting with yourself before you cared about any of that, right? Before you cared about what society cared about you or thought about you or whoever, right? Before you cared about judgment. So in some ways, this can be a healthy, as long as you're not, taking out your second mortgage to buy old Matchbox toys or something.
I'm filling every room.
In moderation, it can actually be a healthy way to reconnect with your true self, which I thought was interesting.
It is an interesting take. And I mean, nostalgia, when it comes to physical items like this, okay, don't hate me. It's a dumb plastic toy. Has somebody in his 40s, I'm not playing with this. I'm not over there running cars around, doing.
Why not? I would.
Maybe once when I first pulled it back up, but
yeah,
it's not about the physical item. It's about the memory. People are going out and they're paying, good money to get these older things, not because they want those older things. They want that memory. And you can sit there and have the memory just by seeing a picture and, I remember when I had that. But then having that tangible physical sensation clicks into something else. And like I said in the article, as I'm taking this apart to see, okay, because the spin mechanism was a little sticky and I wanted to see if the water pump would still work. I took it apart and I opened it up. And last time I used this, I was a kid in rural Michigan in a sandbox. I had a big sandbox. Yeah, that's how old Chris is. He was playing in a freaking sandbox, but big sandbox, and I would have like little canyons and stuff to run the cars around with. And then I would go inside and play with the Nintendo a little bit. I got outside. It's healthy. There was sand in the bottom of this super spin car wash. And I didn't buy this from eBay. This was mine as a kid. So that sand in the sandbox was my sand.
Yeah.
I had this kind of flip out moment. It's like, I should sweep that up and put it into a little baggie. And it's like, dude, what is wrong with you, man?
Well, there's an extra nostalgia hit, I think, that's extra powerful if you have a toy or any treasured possession from your childhood, if it is specifically yours. Like, it's cool if it's like, I had this cool toy and I don't have it anymore, so I'm going to go on eBay and find one that's similar to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's extra special when it is actually yours and you still have it. And in fact, now I look back and I'm so upset in some of the toys that I had that I just like threw away in college.
I know.
Space. And I'm just
did the same thing,
man. But there's still a couple things I have, and I'm very happy that I still have them. This particular, my very first model car that I made when I was maybe 8 or something like that. Like I'm so happy I have the actual first model car that I made with my grandpa, who got me into cars. Like,
Mhm.
yes, I could go on eBay and find one that's similar, but the fact that this was the one that we built together, and now I think of my grandpa, who's no longer with us, every time I have this, is extra special. And when you have old stuff like that, it can unlock memories that you don't remember. Like, I'm sure, Smith, when you were going through and like, oh yeah, I remember having that sandbox and all the cool stuff I did with it. I think
Yeah,
that's
the
really healthy and
sandbox,
fun.
the
Yeah.
sandbox connection never came up until I took it apart. It's like, it's all dirty. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's sand from my sandbox that I washed off of my Countach. And yes, Group FBC, good God, man, taking a Countach through an automated car wash, you heathen. It's now, if you go back to some of the photos, if you look, it's now a touchless car wash because the little foam rollers are gone. I have no idea. I found one lane in the bottom, so I have no idea where the others went.
Right.
Bruce, could you do me a favor and kind of flip through those photos?
So you did not upload them as a gallery, as far as I can tell. So I've just been opening them individually.
They should be a gallery. Well, if you can, try to get the lead image up there, because
I can do that. Yeah,
there's an Easter egg in here of what I hope will be a future coolest toys we forgot. And if you bring up that image, I'll do another little teaser here for everybody. While that's happening, Brad, I mean, talk about some of your some of your classic toys that you remember fondly here.
Well, I mean, I remember my friends had this, and I remember that one unfortunate side effect was that if you had any cars with like stickers on the side, they tended not to last long through this, because you're literally like pouring stuff on and stuff like that. I loved Micro Machines. That was my big obsession.
Thank you.
Was Micro Machines.
In a moment.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I might have sent one of you guys some photos, but loved having Micro Machines. I don't know why. Maybe it was just the idea that you could. I was actually kind of upset when they brought back Micro Machines and they're no longer based on real cars. The thing that made them really special was it was like they were modeled very well on a very small scale after real vehicles. So it's like, when you're a kid, you can't have a Corvette, right? But you can, and you can have several of them, and they were so small you could fit a wad of them like in your pocket,
Exactly.
and then unfortunately you would go in the car and they would slide down into the back seat of the your dad's Buick in that crack, and you never see them again. But but it didn't matter because they were cheap. You could buy them and they looked cool, and they came with cool carrying cases where
I was about to say they had like cool play sets and things where I mean, we just had like carrying cases for the Hot Wheels, but the carrying case was like its whole little thing. You could open it up and play and do all kinds of things.
Yeah,
very cool. Bruce, come on, man, something from your childhood.
Yeah, I've been ready here. I'm all in. First up, I'm showing off some Micro Machines because I was actually going to be talking about Micro Machines here in literally just a second. But you can see the cool thing about Micro Machines is also they came as a set. So like you didn't just get one car. You would get, each one of these would be in a little pack. So you get like 5 cars in a pack, and they're mini, and generally there was like some sort of theme to them. Like you can see here's like, like really colorful stuff, or here's old hot rods, or, just whatever. The one I was going to bring up is also a Micro Machines thing, and that was the Race in a Case. And I will present an image of that.
I think I remember that. I never had any Micro Machines, but there are a lot of kids that I knew that did. Yes. Oh my God, I remember that.
I had this. Oh, I had this. Holy cow.
I still have this. I still own this.
You still have it?
You still have it?
Yes. That's the thing. You guys were talking about getting rid of your toys. I didn't get rid of my toys. I have them all.
Sweet.
Awesome. Oh, wow.
But yes, so this was a slot car track, but as you can see up here on the upper right, it folded into like a little briefcase. So like theoretically, you could take a slot car track anywhere. And it wasn't huge because they were Micro Machines. It was micro, but it was still a transportable slot car track.
That was cool. Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about Micro Machines and their carrying case is that, you were like the coolest kid showing up at the preschool playground with I think there was one that was like a van, and it folded out to like San Francisco. And the one I had was like a helicopter or something. And, and the fact that they're so portable, I think that's what made Micro Machines so extra fun.
Right.
Yep. They were coming in just as I was I hate to say the term aging out, because I mean I was still a little jealous, was when some of the kids at school would bring him in and set him up. I was super into Transformers by that era, like 86, 87.
Yeah.
I was just totally into them.
Brad, here's
yeah.
your van.
There's my van. There's the
Super
van.
Van City.
Super Van City. Oh, they all, by the way, had fun little ads. All ads for, at least for boys at the time, had fun little jingles to go with this one. Super Van City, Micro Machines. Like they would have these.
Oh my God, I remember
fun
that.
little. They would have these fun little things, and you were so jazzed when these ads came out. And the Micro Machines guy was started really fast. And Micro Machines, click them all. The marketing itself was really fun. And I mean, look at all this stuff you could do. You had a little race in the bottom. It looked like a Ford Aerostar when you put it together. I mean, this was living, man. This is great. 4 screens. This is what we had, and kind of thankful about that. Actually, it wasn't too bad.
Bruce, you still have these things?
I have my race in a so that's the thing, is that I never got rid of any of this stuff. I had I have in my attic, I've got plastic containers, and it has all of my toys in them.
Wow.
It's time to bust that stuff out, man.
Yeah, dude.
What are you doing? What are you doing next week before Christmas? I'm heading down.
Yeah, you're welcome to come. Yeah, I know where everything is. There, it's protected. It's
Well, guess who's contributing to the coolest car toys we forgot series?
Yeah.
Chris Bruce. Let me do a quick shout out here. Pills JD, memorable childhood toy. To me, a grasshopper. Brad, you and I were kind of messaging last night about RC cars. I totally remember the grasshopper. I used to read RC. What was it? RC Toys RC Car Action was the magazine.
That's a great name for a magazine.
RC Car. I think it was RC Car Action, but it was in the school library, right? Back when there was actually print stuff there. And it's like you just always instantly go to the back to look at all the cool stuff that was for sale. Grasshopper was it was always there. It was always the one to get. I was talking with Brad last night. I'm keeping an eye out on eBay for the Nico Mosquito, which is I think it was like a 1/16 scale. It wasn't the large buggy; it was the smaller buggy that you could get at just like the regular store. And it was small enough where it didn't have the bigger battery pack. It just had the double A's. I saw, because I adored that when I was a kid, and I have no idea what happened to it. And I've kept an eye out if I could find a decent one. I did find one that was up on eBay like a year or so ago that was never opened, still in the box and everything, and they wanted $500, and it's like I can't do $500. For all I know, it's still up there. But yeah, Brad, did you ever figure out what you were trying to? Because you were you had one that was the size bigger.
It was a couple sizes bigger, and I want to say it was made in the 90s. But thinking about all this stuff did make me think, further on. I feel like every car enthusiast I know of grew up with a bunch of car toys. And sure. Thankfully, the market was more than happy to satiate our needs.
Oh my gosh!
And beyond that, and beyond that, and even if you might age out of, let's say, Hot Wheels or Micro Machines, for me, then I went on to the next step was car models or Technic Legos of cars or things like that, right?
Or RC cars or
RC cars, right? And to me, what it kind of made me think about is that the curse of being a young car enthusiast is that you can't actually drive a car. You're too young to own a car, and that in some ways toys or models or RC cars or even slot cars or whatever it is was in a weird way a way to bide the time until you were old enough to drive and own your own car, right? Because while you couldn't own a real Corvette, you could own a model Corvette or a Micro Machine Corvette or a Hot Wheels Corvette, you know what I mean? And right. I think it was I just remember, counting down the days until I was 16, you know what I mean? And it could own my own car and drive my own car. And in a weird way, car toys or car models or whatever was a fun way to fill that gap and be the next best thing, Well, I can't drive a real car, but I can drive an RC car. Yeah.
I can drive an RC car, and it's mine. This is my car.
And it's yours.
I can't climb into it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I gotta share this comment really quick. Group FBC. The big debate was Hot Wheels versus Matchbox.
Yeah.
In 1997, it ceased to exist because Mattel bought Matchbox, which of course Mattel had Hot Wheels at the point. But I get what you're saying. I kind of like Matchbox
back in the 80s, 90s. I liked Matchbox because they were real cars.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Hot Wheels had real cars too, but they also had some of the more wild stuff.
True. Yes.
Well,
Matchbox was always a real car.
Yeah, I just watched a documentary about that, and first of all, Matchbox was first, and they were a UK company, and they were based on reality with cars. Hot Wheels came around in like the 60s. As a California company, and their big thing was, first of all, making the cars a little bit more outrageous and not necessarily be accurate, but they also rolled much better. They rolled way smoother, and they had tracks and all that other stuff. And I loved having the Hot Wheels tracks that you would have going. We would have a couple story house, and you could have them start at like the top of the stairs in your bedroom and go all the way down to the basement. So I was a Hot Wheels guy for that reason alone, is that they had all the tracks and the fun stuff. And the cars were a little bit more outlandish. Although I think by the time the 80s or 90s came around, they did have some realistic Hot Wheels.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, guys, we are at just over an hour. So, Brad, we were going to talk about your used car search. I think just for reasons of time, we got to skip that tonight.
But sounds good. Let's do it.
Whenever you buy it, maybe you should come back on and show it off.
Sure. Love to. Sounds good.
Absolutely. Because we touched on it a little bit. You might have a Camaro in mind, but you're looking for like a Goldilocks, like a unicorn Camaro from the 90s. You've got to come back on when you find it. And I have faith in you. You will find it.
Thanks, guys. We'll see. Keeping it open, though. I mean, there's I'm always interested in different cars. So, yeah.
But now, without a further ado, let's get into the cheap car challenge. And again, I'll repeat for if anyone missed it at the beginning, you've got $10,000 to spend. It must be right-hand drive. Unless you're one of our foreign listeners in Australia, South Africa, England, then it must be left-hand drive. And $10,000 is the total price. There's no finding a $9,000 car in Japan and bringing it over. No, you get $10,000. So, who would like to go first?
I think Mr. Hansen has to go first, being the guest here on the show.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. And now, guys, before we jump into it, was this harder or easier than you thought?
Both.
Because I thought it was easy. Yeah. I thought it was easier.
I had an easier time than I thought, just because especially in California, I feel like I tried to find one that was also close to me. There's a lot of interest in right-hand drive cars. So this is my pick here. It is almost exactly $10,000. It is a UK edition of the RAV4. So it is right-hand drive. The UK did all these weird like special editions for RAV4s. Like every year they had some special thing. For 98, there was the Free Sport edition, and they were just mostly like colors and graphics or wheels or something like that. But yeah, this one looks really, really nice. It's a stick.
It does.
It's 4-wheel drive, center locking differential, and the colors are great. To me, the part that's really great is the super 90s fabric material of the seats. If you can get one of the photos where you can see the seats.
There. Oh yeah.
There we go. Yeah, it's got the beautiful.
Oh, there we go.
Beautiful 90s fabric style to me that's what made me choose this one specifically.
That is so 90s. I can't think of how many cars I saw with a similar print like that in the 90s. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So this kudos for finding a right-hand drive car that's not a Japanese import.
Yeah.
I was trying so hard to find something in that vein and not have it be like a U.S. mail vehicle, which I know some of our commenters were talking. Yes, there are actually quite a few Jeeps and Subarus in America that are set up as right-hand drive for the U.S. Post Office, so they can go along and drop mail into the mailbox without having to climb across the car.
Yeah. Imported in March 2023, so it's only been in the country for a few months. This the car that Brad picked, 109,000 miles, almost 110,000 miles. Yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah, and it looks like it's been taken care of too. And now, granted, registering and smogging a right-hand an import car in California is kind of a nightmare. So a lot of people here, they'll just title them somewhere else.
You need to come live with Smith and I. There's no smog in Michigan and Ohio.
Right.
Nope.
That's true. Yeah. So that is the one trick. Like, you know, I think I have a friend that did import one and did do it all, and it was a good like $8,000 proposition to get the proper smog equipment, to get it up to spec, to get it titled, get it registered. It's kind of a pain. So most people here in California, they just title them somewhere else. In fact, I think this one says like, you know what, just title it. I think at the end they're like, don't even bother trying to get this here. You got to like get it titled somewhere else, you know. But you know, seemed to be a pretty decent looking car. So yeah, my pick. What do you guys got?
That's a nice find. And let me just say really quick, I love that because you would go into a car show and, you know, even at Radwood, and you would see it at a glance and be like, oh, that's kind of neat. But it's one of those things where you get close and you realize this isn't just a RAV. This is very different. Yeah, I love that sort of sneaky aspect. I love everything about that. Bruce, who's going next, you or me?
I'll go next.
You make the call. Okay.
To find something truly interesting, I had to bend the rules a bit. So I know we usually say it has to be within regular driving distance for you.
A day's drive.
Right. This one is pushing that to the absolute limits, but it is so cool.
If we picked the same car, damn it. All right, go ahead.
Right. I found
it better not be a Mitsubishi.
It's not. Although we might have found my backup choice might be the same car.
Okay.
I found a 1995 Toyota Crown Taxi.
Oh,
that
sweet.
runs on LPG, which is light petroleum gas, which is essentially a combination of propane and butane.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real taxi. Oh, by the way, it has, let me get the mileage right.
Look at that color.
430,000 miles on it.
Look at that color.
And it's a stick?
It is a stick. It is
wild.
A 4 on the column. It's not even a 3 on the tree. It's a 4 on the tree.
Wow. On the tree manual.
Everywhere. It's just a land of doilies.
Where is it at?
Have a floor. I don't know if maybe that's a Japanese taxi thing. I don't know.
Weird.
But there you can see to release the rear door to let your passenger out.
Wow.
There's the LPG tank. And let me get to there it is on the
column.
So 1, 2, 3,
4. Wow.
Second and reverse look like they're scarily close.
This is like quirks upon quirks upon quirks. This car, you
I just noticed this.
Oh my god,
it's got like a gold wing top.
But the rear doors are so the door opens to the side and then a gull opens to the top.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna go next. You win. Yeah. There's nothing. No, this is amazing.
$6,000. So I am well within the price range.
Where is it? Go get it.
It's in Georgia. It's at the very, very, very northern tip of Georgia.
Okay. Yeah. That's more than a day's drive for me, but you could get there.
So it has one gull wing door. One gull wing. Right?
Correct. And it's a semi-gull wing door because it still has a conventional door.
Now when you pull that handle, do both doors open?
I have no idea.
So wild. I've never even heard of this. This is amazing.
Yeah, this is fantastic. It looks like it's just the one door, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the one door. Which I guess that would be the passenger side, which that would make sense because that's where you would be picking up.
Oh, but you know what that means? You could put in an ejector seat.
Yeah.
Yes, or you can just put a button back there and tell people that it's in there and just don't bug me or I'm going to push the eject button. And if you don't believe me, look above your head.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that until just now that the upper part of the door opens. That's and I just love the doilies on the seats, on the headrests, everywhere.
I've seen a few Japanese imports that have that motif going on.
Yes, that's apparently a thing.
Yeah, that is a sign of luxury, as I understand. Like if you ever see like a Toyota, there's a couple Toyota Centuries at
I've seen
Radwood,
them.
which are like the de facto cool limo, and yeah, the really nice ones. They're not, and they don't like leather either. It's not leather seats.
Right.
It is like a cloth or a wool or something, and
what
with
I
the
had
doilies
heard,
on top. Yeah,
and maybe this is apocryphal. If we have any Japanese listeners, let me know. What I had heard is that since luxurious men's suits are made out of wool, they felt that seats to be luxurious should also have wool covering. That is what I've heard, at least.
Also, what I've heard is that the purpose of the doilies is that you can remove them and clean
wash
them, which is like actually great.
It's a good idea.
And I wasn't sure if you were going to nail me on this since it was a 95 and you're going to say, oh, that's not Radwood appropriate. But
it totally is.
I did an extra bit of research. So this is an 8th generation Toyota Crown, and they were in production from 1987 until 1999. And there were 2 other generations of Crown that came out at the same time, but these were so popular as like taxis and stuff like that. They were in production for over a decade. So this has its roots in the 80s, even if it's a 95 model.
No, that you win. You win this contest. You win the next Radwood. You win.
Okay.
You win.
Well, Smith, I want to see if you pick my backup pick.
I probably did. Is it the 1998 Mitsubishi Flying Pug Pajero Jr.?
I saw that one, but no, it's not that one.
It's not this one. Okay, so
it's not that one.
It's in Pennsylvania. It's a day's drive for me. It's 87,000 miles. It's $9,995.
Let the people see the grill, because that's what makes this car. Yeah, there you go.
What?
It's at first I was like, okay, what is this, like some weird caricature of a Pajero? No, wow. I did a little bit of research on this. It is the Pajero Junior Flying Pug limited edition. It's a real thing. They made like 130 of them. I don't know how and by what measure this one got imported to the United States, but it's in Pennsylvania. It's advertised as running good. Only 139 were ever made. I love it says Black Friday special. Apparently it wasn't special enough because it's still for sale. Let me just kind of scroll through some of the pictures. I mean, it's a Pajero Junior, so just a little off-roader for those listening on audio. It has the face of like a 1930s Auburn.
Yes,
it's so bizarre because the front end does not match the rest of the car at all. It's like a bit round. And the fenders too are sort of 30s-ish, but then the rest of the car is so 80s square. It's bizarre.
It's 80s square with like this weird 30s architecture going on. Wow. It is right-hand drive, automatic. It doesn't list stats here in the ad, but I did a little bit of research, and I believe these have just a little 1-liter engine, making about 80 horsepower. As I read. This one, I mean, it looks good all around. It's ugly. I'm just gonna say it's ugly. I don't like the way it looks, but I love its individuality. You will never, I know you're not supposed to say never. Yeah, I'm saying it. You will never see another one of these around. Yeah. And I love the little skulls in the headlights. I'm assuming that's an aftermarket change, but
that is ridiculous. So someone that's definitely not of the era. What I think is funny is that somebody bought this car and then felt, you know what? This bright purple thing with this weird face, and was like, you know what? I wish it was manlier. So I'm going to put these stupid LED lights with angry skulls.
With angry skulls in them.
And now I feel like a man driving this. It's like, what? Come on now. This is uncalled for.
And I mean, can we just call out the Mitsubishi hood ornament in the style of a Mercedes?
Hood ornament.
That's great.
I mean, yeah, there's everything and nothing that I love about this car at the same time. Just under 10 grand. I enjoyed that so much, Bruce. I found a 93 Legacy wagon that was well under the price limit.
Oh, I found that one too.
I had it in Iowa. I had
maybe not. Maybe
I had a 90 Legacy wagon that I adored, but literally rusted apart on me. The rear strut towers literally broke away, and the suspension was held in place by the rear seats. That's how rusty it was.
Well,
this one was clean, and it looked like it had some maintenance, but it wasn't perfect. But I was like, oh, I want that. And then I found this thing, and it's like, if I'm going to Radwood,
yeah,
I'm taking the Mitsubishi. I'm taking the bonkers Mitsubishi.
So real quick, because we were talking about it, let me show you my backup, which is also a Mitsubishi. It is also a Pajero. Mine is a Pajero Mini, though. $7,500, located in Illinois, which actually is drivable. It just wasn't as cool as the Toyota Taxi, but still very cool. Right-hand drive, little tiny off-roader.
Isn't it funny that we all sort of gravitated towards, assuming your backup accounts, towards those small, SUVs that they don't sell them anymore. The small two-door SUVs that were kind of the rage in the 90s. My mom had a 91 Sidekick, and they don't make them anymore. It's kind of sad. They're so fun. And then but a lot of those, by the way, being from Iowa, I can tell you that we saw a lot of right-hand drive Subaru wagons being used as mail cars, as post office cars, because they needed to work during the winter where it was snowy. But yet, if it's right-hand drive, you're lined up perfectly to put the mail in, and it's a wagon, so you have all the space for the mail. So that might have been what this one was. Well, that kind of looks like a turbo or something, though. I don't know.
It's not, though. The ad says, and we're looking at it now, 93 Subaru Legacy wagon. The ad says it was from New Mexico and is completely rust-free. It actually does look pretty clean. It looks like it may have been painted. I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, it's got the big wing on the back. It's got gold wheels because Subaru. It's right-hand drive. There's a lot that the ad didn't really go into detail on, other than it's a right-hand drive and it's from New Mexico, so no rust. And they're asking $6,000, so I mean it's easily within the limit. You don't see many of these first-gen Legacy wagons left anymore. They did have some slight rust issues, so it's rare to see a clean one. That just looks like a great foundation to do a nice little turbo swap and just have so much fun. But Bruce, no, you win. Oh my God, 1,000 times over, you win.
Well, thank you. But everyone, that's going to be our show for tonight. Brad, I want to give you the chance. You obviously have your YouTube channel, you have your Instagram, you have all that stuff. Promote away. What are you doing? What do you got coming up? This is your chance. Promote yourself.
Sure. I think the main thing is to see whatever I'm up to. Go to my Instagram, which is at Brad Hansen Media. That's Hansen with an E. And you'll see whatever we're up to there. And then, every so often I put up a YouTube video on my Retro Cars Forever YouTube channel. And follow me if you like.
Very good.
Well, we're super happy to have you back. Yeah, obviously, the invite is just universally open. Come back anytime.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. No, this felt like we were talking for 15 minutes and we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And, I could keep talking to you. So, yeah, this was a fun one. I hope the audience enjoyed it. As always, we appreciate you. We understand there's 1,000,001 things you could be doing, but you decide to spend time with us, and we appreciate that. So yeah, without further ado, I think good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and we will be seeing you next week. So bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. We'll see you.